Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. So, we're doing things a lot earlier than usual because after yesterday doing the video so late, I didn't get much time to myself to kind of detox from training yesterday, and I was kind of running around like a mad idiot. So from now on, expect to start seeing these videos a lot earlier in the day. That being said, before we get started, folks, as always, if you want to take a look or if you would like to go along with me as we go through this document here, please go to the description box. The link will be there, as well as the link to the petition to close down the Judge Rotenberg Center. If you haven't already signed it, please do. Also, warning, the things that we discuss, especially when we are talking about the Judge Rotenberg Center, are incredibly disturbing. We do go over very vivid descriptions of torture of people with disabilities. So, if you have young children in the room when you are watching these videos, we do suggest that you please go ahead and use your headphones. All right, folks. Now, apologies in advance if I stumble over any scientific jargon or over my words in general. It is super early, so I wouldn't be too surprised. All right, folks, without further ado, back to the FDA Executive Summary for April the 24th, 2014. We left off yesterday here at 5.2. Risks identified through CDRH's manufacturer and user facility device experience mod database for medical devices. All right, here we go. So the MOD database is maintained by the Office of Surveillance and Biometrics, OSB, and CDRH at FDA. This database contains adverse events and reportable product problems with medical devices. The database was fully implemented in August 1996 and contains individual adverse event reports submitted by manufacturers, user facilities, importers, and voluntary reporters. Medical device manufacturers are required to report known adverse events as part of the general controls that most medical devices are subject to. Patients and consumers are also encouraged to voluntarily report AEs. Over the entire period the database has been maintained, there has been only one report of an AE for aversive conditioning devices, which are designated under the FDA product code HCB. This report was submitted in 1995 from an unnamed source. It describes an incident of an inadvertent deployment of a GED device, an electric skin shock device for aversive conditioning, with resulting skin lesions, including 2 ring-shaped marked and 3 areas of rough skin. So, yeah. Moving on. 5.3 Additional available information regarding benefits and risks. As noted above, the statute and regulations required FDA to consider all available data and information in making a banning determination. Therefore, in addition to the systematic review of the literature for benefits and risks of ESDs for aversive conditioning, other sources of information were reviewed and summarized in the following sections. 5.3.1 Council on Scientific Affairs, American Medical Association, AMA, Council Report, Aversion Therapy. In 1987, the Council on Scientific Affairs of the AMA provided recommendations for the use of aversive therapy for various indications. They noted that aversion therapy is a series of techniques designed to reduce unwanted and dangerous behaviors, and positive reports suffered from a lack of control groups and control procedures. At that time, they concluded that the best accepted application was for the treatment of chronic self-injurious behavior. The Council did not limit their consideration of aversive techniques to electric shock, but did conclude that when behavior is dangerous and has not improved with less intrusive procedures, increasingly aversive techniques, up to electric shock for the most severe, are appropriate. God, what kind of monsters are these people? The Council also emphasized that the literature for all indications is found on single or group case studies. Finally, FDA could not find a more recent update of these recommendations. Well, that's sick. Aversive therapy is never the right choice, folks. It's just not. You are punishing someone for things that are entirely out of their control. Just saying. It's cruel. Moving on. 5 point, oh no, before we move on, I know some of you people would start screaming at me, well, what are we supposed to do about it? We can't let these behaviors go on. They can hurt themselves and hurt others. You don't understand. Before you start with that, you don't understand bullshit. Again, I've worked in the field, folks. I have worked in the field, both voluntarily and for my livelihood. And all I have to tell you is this. Instead of punishing people for things that are people doing things outside of their control and always blaming their disability all the time and victim blaming and victim shaming constantly, try and figure out, because again, behavior is communication, what is the driving force behind the behaviors? These behaviors don't come out of the blue, okay? They don't just show up randomly. There's always something that is a trigger. All right? So, remember, step out of your neurotypical bubbles. Start thinking about the constant sensory and emotional things going on any given moment of any given day. Start seeing what exactly is going on in the environment around the person with a disability whenever the behaviors start to occur. Solve the issue, and guess what? Yeah, common sense, isn't it? Beats the hell out of inhumane treatment such as adversive therapy, right? Okay, now that we got that sorted, moving on. 5.3.2 National Institute of Health, NIH Consensus Development Conference Statement, Treatment of Destructive Behaviors in Persons with Developmental Disabilities, September 11th through 13th, 1989. In 1989, NIH held a conference to review the treatment of destructive behaviors in persons with developmental disabilities. Based on the conference proceedings, consensus recommendations were made for the behavior enhancement and reduction approaches. The conference did not specify either ESDs for aversive conditioning, though they noted that they might be considered behavior reduction techniques. If you're insane, behavior reduction treatments discussed included brief, fraction of second, thoracic shock delivered to the skin, a disagreeable tasting substance placed in the subject's mouth. Oh my God, the hell is wrong with you? Mouth washing, oral hygiene. Wait a minute, what? You're gonna have somebody brushing their teeth as punishment? Oh, that's a right quick and good way to get somebody to neglect the health of their teeth by making it a punishment. God, seriously? No common sense. Again, how do these people have degrees? Air, water mist, or ammonia salts placed briefly under a person's nose or tickling. So just accept that inappropriate behavior, folks. God. Inappropriate behavior of a stranger tickling me. Really? Really? That's where we're going? Moving on. The conference reached consensus that behavior reduction interventions appeared to be effective in some individuals, particularly in suppressing destructive behaviors, particularly self-injurious behavior, SIB. But let's give them PTSD. The consensus statement states that the majority of studies of behavioral reduction and interventions, maximum 90% suppression effects were seen in 1 to 10 days. For most part, follow-up studies of the subjects treated with behaviors reduction approaches have revealed that suppression effect can endure for months and indeed persist up to 2 years after the intervention has been discontinued. The extent which other environmental factors contribute to this durable change is clear. Seems like all you want is change. That's all you want. You want them to behave the way you want them to behave. But, who cares about their mental health or the damage that you've done to their psyche? Ugh. Because they're disabled people. Who cares about our mental health and sense of well being, right? The consensus statement indicated that negative side effects of behavioral interventions also have been reported anecdotally for both behavior enhancement and behavior reduction approaches. For example, some interventions have been found to lead to the emergence of other forms of self injury or other forms of undesirable behavior. In addition, relapse following discontinuation of treatment may lead to more severe or more interval forms of destructive behavior. Additionally, side effects that have been reported include decreased social behavior, increased aggression, and increased stereotyping. Do you think? Less visible side effects associated with behavior reduction approaches include the potential for abuse in the application of these procedures. Thank you. The psychological effects on staff, and most important, the psychological effects on the staff? But who cares about the person with disabilities, right? Their mental health doesn't count. Their sense of safety doesn't count. God. And most important, the negative and demeaning social image. Social image? Social image. Wow. That the use of some of these procedures conveyed to the general public about persons with developmental disabilities. The conference further recommended behavior reduction procedures should be selected for their rapid effectiveness only if exigencies of clinical situation require short-term use of restrictive interventions and only after appropriate review and informed consent are obtained. Yeah, Andre McCollins did not consent. It is recognized, however, that behavior reduction procedures make little to no effect direct contribution of providing constructive alternatives to the destructive behaviors targeted for the elimination. Thank you. Thus, the intervention should be used only if they are incorporated in the context of a comprehensive and individualized behavior enhancement treatment package. Finally, it was noted a major controversy had erupted in the last decade, i.e., the 1980s, regarding the use of behavior reduction approaches, also called aversive treatments. The controversy included both the credibility of the scientific evidence regarding the effectiveness of such techniques and the ethical aspects, legal issues, and social acceptability of these procedures. The consensus statement called for further research on all types of treatment for destructive behaviors in persons with developmental disabilities. The online report includes the following qualified statement. This statement is more than 5 years old and is provided solely for historical purposes. Due to the cumulative nature of medical research, new knowledge has inevitably accumulated in this subject area in the time since the treatment was initially prepared. Thus, some of the material is likely out of date and at worst simply wrong. Thank you. Thank you. New York State Education Department, NYSED report, June 6th, 2006. Let me see how long this is, because, I'm working today. Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and go over this and we'll close out this morning. 5.3.3. The NYSED conducted site visits in April to May 2006 to the Judge Rotenberg Center, JRC, formerly known as the Behavioral Research Institute, a private residential school located in Canton, Massachusetts. The NYSED was sending studies with autism, intellectual disability, emotional disturbance, and multiple disabilities to the JRC at the time of the report. The school serves students who exhibit serious behaviors that interfere with learning and provides an intensive behavioral treatment program to students 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What they don't know, folks, but I wanted to let you know, JRC usually targets all their promotional stuff around minorities and people of low income, people who may not necessarily have the means in order to approach programs with the positive behavioral reinforcement programs. They end up getting sent here usually by the school dime. They're coming from poor families, they're coming from minority families. Yeah, yeah. And remember, they get a $285,000 kickback for each student. So just keep that in mind as we continue to go through this. Concerns about the adverse conditioning regimen from a previous site visit, as well as questions from legislators and the Board of Regents, New York, prompted an investigation by the New York State Education Department in 2006, and an independent report was commissioned. For this report, a sample of 12 New York State students were selected for review from the 71 state students receiving aversive interventions that included electric skin shock, food contingent programs. Remember, that's food deprivation, folks. They don't just engage in one freaking torturous type of therapy, they engage in them all. Whew. And or manual mechanical restraints. Oh, and I forgot sleep deprivation too. Level 3 behavioral interventions. While the report evaluated all aspects of the JRC program, it focused on health and safety issues related to the use of ESDs for aversive conditioning. The following is a brief summary. The report noted on pages 6 to 7 that the most common level 3 aversive procedure used at JRC is skin shock, in which one or more electrical stimulations are administered to a student after he or she engages in a targeted behavior. We've all seen what those targeted behaviors are. Skin shocks are delivered through a graduated electronic defibrillator (GED) device, described in Section 3.2 of this executive summary. Electrodes were worn by the student on various parts of the body, notably the arms, legs, and stomach area. It ranged in number and placement dependent upon the student's behavior program guidelines. Okay, let's stop there real quick. The stomach area is one of the most sensitive areas on the body. Remember earlier in this report when we covered that you're not supposed to be putting it on the chest or the torso? Yeah. Moving on. Of the New York students at the JRC, 53 were receiving stimulation with a GED and 24 were receiving stimulation from a GED-4 device, which is not FDA approved or cleared. It has been reported to have peak output current that is 3 times that of the FDA-cleared GED. Specifically, the report concluded that the use of electric skin shock conditioning devices at JRC raised health and safety concerns, and that the collateral effects, e.g., increased fear, anxiety, or aggression on students resulting from the JRC's punishment model, were not adequately assessed, monitored, or addressed. Thank you. The report also describes that aversive behavioral interventions are administered to students with a broad range of disabilities, many without a clear history of self-injurious behaviors. Told you all. And for behaviors that are not aggressive, health, dangerous, or destructive. The report notes that there is limited evidence of comprehensive functional behavioral assessments, FBAs, and limited evidence of collection of data to relevant FBAs. In addition, the report mentioned a dependence on punishment without regard to the type of disability or emotional problem. Cookie cutter approach. Fantastic. You're disabled, you get a shock. For existing, And mention a lack of effort to switch to the less restrictive treatments as condition approves. The report also mentioned a general use of interventions for behaviors that are not dangerous or destructive. Social interaction, academic instruction, and respect for the patient's dignity were all found to be insufficient. Thank you, God. The report also found substantial risks of malnourishment, skin burns from the device, and psychological side effects such as fear, aggression, and anxiety, which are not assessed, monitored, or addressed by the JRC. Although these adverse events are associated with the overall use of aversive interventions, electric skin shock using GED was the most common level 3 aversive procedure used at the JRC. Finally, the qualifications of personnel were found to be insufficient, as most staff members only have a high school education. The report noted a lack of evidence for monitoring for potential collateral negative effects, such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, or social withdrawal. One student interviewed stated that she had been burned by the GED-4 device while taking a shower. Oh my God. Another student reported feeling depressed and fearful, desired to kill herself, thought about killing herself every day. The report did not specify if this was a direct effect of the ESDs for aversive conditioning. I would say it's pretty freaking close. And that's a freaking pretty damning report, folks. I'm actually going to save that so I can use it for my title here. So, guys, that is a pretty damning assessment. This is what we've been saying all along since we first started going through all these information. For their many, many faults and all the things that they are covering here, they got it pretty right as we get towards the end of this document. They pretty much cover it. When the FDA has put out assessment like this, with by their own mentionings, the stuff they do approve of is pretty freaking dark. And yet, this is the conclusion that they've come to with the GED-4, and their very damning report by the New York school systems. That's pretty bad, folks. That's pretty bad. And it pretty much sums up the whole entirety of this video, as well as many of the videos that are going to be coming in the future. I can't wrap it up much better than what was said here, so we're going to go ahead and close out for this morning. So, folks, before we head out, as always, we don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to sometimes get removed from the channel. So if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't forget the comments. One more reminder, you can find this document as well as the petition to shut down the Judge Rotenberg Center in the description. I do appreciate your time this morning, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.